Hi everyone, it's Leanna here, and so today I'm going to talk about my reverse osmosis system and the reasons why a person might want to get one and might not need one. And so we'll just start out looking at the filters here that I use in my system. The newer ones are ROR 2050, mine is an RO 2000, and it's an older model. It's about 16, 17 years old. This is when I got it a few years back. Part of the reasons why we ended up getting it was my ex didn't like the taste of our hard water, well water, and we have calcium, iron, and sulfur in our water. So the sulfur gives sort of an off taste and smell if it's sat too long in the well out there, especially on the outside water pump. If we haven't used it, and just opened it up during a warm day in the winter, because we can't get to it, it's buried in snow right now. You need to let it run for a while because it has that off smell and taste. So he didn't like it. We ended up getting the system, and when it was my place. So when he left, the system just stayed. Basically, you can see on the front here the cartridges and the filters that go in here. So we have this one here, which is I don't know if they actually tell a little bit about them, but you can see it kind of looks like that. And then we have that's the carbon one, and that's this one. And then I don't have a membrane in this box, but that's the membrane, and I'll show where that goes in. So you can get these kits, or you can buy them individually. Like this is a refrigerator, because that's another filter we have on there. So the refrigerator one will take out chlorine, taste, odor, function, different things. Depends on where you get them, what they're for. This one here is a string filter, and it reduces the sediment and rust particles, so you can use that. This is another type of carbon. And then here's a Omni filter twin pack of string wound. It's a sediment filter, which essentially I think that's what that is. So we have, here, this is the replacement cartridge kit for Omni filter RO 2050 and RO 2000 systems. These other two filters here, as you can see, they'll say every 3 to 4 months, and usually the membrane is, it depends on, what kind of stuff you have in your water. It might be every year, if not, usually I think it's every 2 or 3 years, depending on your setup, what your well water is like. The polyspun cartridge, there we go. Then we have a carbon block cartridge, the inline carbon cartridge, that's the RO one. And then they put O-rings in there, and there's O-rings in some of that stuff. So let me see here. Reduces sediment, taste, odor, chlorine, taste, and odor. That's about all they give you on it, it looks like. But just quick here. Okay, so we'll just run over there and we'll look at the system and go through the other pros and cons. Okay, this is my system. It's the RO 2000. Like I said, I've had it for about 16 years at least, minimally. I have a permeate pump on it, and as we go through and how it's set up, I'll explain that. So the kits are, I forget, we paid somewhere around $160 or $80 17 years ago, and they're right in that ballpark range. Yet today, for new ones, depending on where you buy them, and you can buy them online, which they are usually a little more expensive unless you catch them on sale or whatever. Sometimes you can go to a big box store like Menards. We have Menards, Home Depot, and Fleet Farm here, and all of those carry some sort of RO system. Maybe not particularly this one though. We did get this one at Menards, and they do carry the newer version. But it's right around that, $150, $60 range, and it could be as high as $200, especially if you get all the filters at the same time, or some extra ones. So we'll just go through the setup of the system. So as you can see, we mounted it on a board here that's mounted to the wall to studs. It's a very simple mechanical. There's not a whole lot to it. It's actually the whole thing is relying on your water pressure. So there'll be some pros and cons to that of having this system, and then whether you're in town and whether you're out in the country and what kind of well water you have will determine whether or not a person should think about getting a reverse osmosis system. So if you own your own house, I'm not going to recommend this for apartment dwellers because I don't believe you can legally tap into your water pipe and set this up, and then because it taps into your water pipe, wastewater from this system goes into the sewer. Keep that in mind. So you tap into your pipe, and this is a cold water pipe, and you come in on this side into your first filter, the polyspun one or whichever one you have in there that helps get rid of sediment and things of that sort. And then you come into the carbon one, of course, what the carbon does. You go into your inline membrane. So you're coming in, you're coming out, you're going into the membrane. The membrane is the actual reverse osmosis system. And when you're in there, you're basically separating the water from all the minerals and whatever else is in there. That's basically what a reverse osmosis system does. So you are left with just water. What they call the brine is just like if you're making pickles, you make a saltwater brine. Whatever's in that brine is the concentration. It has been separated out by the membrane, and that goes into your sewer system. So we come out, and in the case of my system, because I'm on a country well water and we have a low pressure system, this hooks right into my permeate pump. If you were in town and have the higher pressure, you wouldn't need the permeate pump. Okay, so it comes into the brine in and the brine out, and this would be the brine one. This is the water, or the permeate, and you get the permeate in and the permeate out. All right. So we get to this pump and are like, okay, why do we have the pump? And the pump has a little mechanism in there that helps push up the pressure of your system, especially when it's where this goes actually is to the storage tank. It has a little storage tank, and I'll show you that in a minute. Permeate water, or your clean reverse osmosis water, goes and it gets stored in the tank. When you release it with a faucet, which I'll show in a minute, when you open up your faucet to get your water, then the water comes out of the storage tank and then comes in. It goes through here to your through this little, basically it's a refrigerator filter, and then into your faucet. So this pump, basically what it does is help reduce your water waste, and that would be the brine water waste, and pushes up the pressure in a well system. And because our well is country well, the pressure is not all that high on it. So we come out and we go here and we go out, and this goes to the storage tank. So this is the storage tank. So it comes in. Sorry if it's a little dirty. We do have this set up in the basement. This is the on-off switch. So when you're changing filters, you want to turn on draining your system, you want to turn that off, leave the water that's in there, because it'll pull it, suck it all out. It comes in here and it stores, and we've upgraded our tank. Actually, the only upgrades we've actually did to this whole system in the 16 years I've done it is we got a new storage tank, because it's a bladder tank, so the bladder will wear out on it after a while. We added the permeate pump. Other than that, this is the only changes I've ever made to this whole system, because there's really nothing to change or upgrade on it per se. The bigger systems have bigger filter cartridge things, I think, especially in the first two, and so you have to watch what you get there. Okay, so it comes back out. We got a splice in the line here because we didn't have a long enough thing. It comes out back out to this T again. So when you actually turn on the faucet, this will go out and through this filter. That's kind of like the refrigerator filter, and then it'll go out. It comes out to this faucet, and then you fill your jugs or whatever you're going to use the water for. As you can see, my faucet probably needs to be upgraded, but it works. I'm not worried about it. I haven't died yet, or whatever. However you want to look at that. Anyways, it's still good, so I won't be updating that anytime soon. So we come back over here. So the permeate pump is basically just something that helps reduce the waste of the separated water from the mineral brine that the reverse osmosis filter does. So it'll reduce water and reduce the pressure of the system where it stores and comes out through the faucet. So that would be the reason for getting a permeate pump, and only if you are out in the country and you have low well water pressure. As you can see, we're at the low end of ours. We have a 4060 regulator. It was 2040, by the way. We had to replace the well pump this year because it had a crack in it. Of course, it's 25 years old, and it wasn't quite 25 when it blew, I think. But anyways, it finally went. We got a new regulator so we could have higher water pressure. So we're a 4060, which means at 40 is the low end. It trips off and on. Okay, and so when you're running water, it won't go above this 60 because this pressure switch will stop it there. All right. Now they'll probably make regulator switches that'll change that as time goes on. But right now, as it stands, this is the highest that I'm aware of, according to most plumbers I've talked to. It's the highest that I'm aware of for country wells. So if you have a well and you live in the city, you have a well at your house, or you live out in the country and you have a well, this is basically what you have for a system with a tank that, whatever size of tank is based on how many running faucets, showers, people, whatever. It's mostly faucets though, from what I remember, because we had to replace that this year. These also have a bladder and they will go out on you eventually. And then, like I said, we're in the basement. We got a wet corner here most of the time, and things just started rusting, so I had to do some replacement there also. It's 20 gallons, and I think we're 30 or 40 now. This is the tall, skinny one because the way they put things in this house, insane. We will not, unless we can get a slightly taller one, and even that's going to be stretching it here with all the pipes. We'll not be able to get a bigger one in. We could put it over here, but now we have this obstruction, so there we are. That is where we're at there. So this is our softener system. Now, this is part of the reason why I have a reverse osmosis system. We have hard water, which is high calcium. We also have iron in our water, which will cause the rusty red tinge on everything if you don't have rust out or some sort of rust remover in your system. And we do have a little bit of sulfur that gets into our water based on where we're at. We're on a hill. We have a 120-foot well, and we have clay soil right on this particular spot on the farm. Hence why we end up having a softener system to remove the calcium, which is hard on the high calcium content is really hard on pipes. And so we have to have a softener system to take that out. So in the nutshell then, we have this system, and of course it flushes through. I mean, this is basically kind of like a big filter, and it's set on a timer, and it flushes through once a day and removes the calcium and whatever, blah blah blah. Then it goes through the rest of the house. But since we have to put softener salt in, and this is what I use. This is just regular softener salt, and this is the one with the iron in it, the rust buster in it, to take out the iron. We use about a bag a month technically, so what I do is put a third or so of each bag into this reservoir here, our little container, and that's, beginning of the month, end of the month kind of thing. The reverse osmosis then, for me, takes out the salt and whatever else might be in there that we don't want in our drinking water. For Jim and I, my grandpa just drinks the regular water. He don't care. He says, I don't want, no, whatever. He's 96. He's an old guy. He's an old farmer, and he's Scotch. So, put two and two together there. And I love my grandpa, but yeah. So we have it. It takes out the sulfur flavor that we could get. But the main thing here is to remove the salt out of the water. My grandfather also has high blood pressure. There's various reasons why he could have it, but I'm sure drinking this softened water is not helping him. And there's still a bit of an off flavor, because this doesn't remove the flavors. So if you have a little sulfur in there, or some other little off flavors, it doesn't remove it. I could get a whole house carbon probably filter and put that in one of these main lines here and have it go through the house. I could put it in our cold water, I guess, sometimes we use the hot water for certain things too. So, but if you have really good well water and it's not hard and there's not no off flavors in it, or even if there was, then all you'd need is probably basically a carbon filter. You wouldn't need a reverse osmosis system. My mom and dad, they live on a sandy loam. We have clay soil here. They live on a sandy loam place, and they don't have hard water. Their water actually tastes pretty good without really doing a whole lot to it, if anything at all. So if you have that kind of water, you don't need a reverse osmosis system. If you live in a town in an apartment, you probably cannot use a reverse osmosis system. If you live in town and you're on city water, you might want to have the reverse osmosis system if you own your own house, because you may not trust your city water. I mean, we do get fluoride and different stuff like that put in. But if you're in a well system and your water's good, don't worry about it. These systems cost right around that $160 range, give or take, depending on where you go. You change your filters 3-4 times a year, except for the membrane, maybe once a year, maybe once every couple of years. Depends on your water. There's these things to think about when you're wanting quality water. If you do a lot of canning and you don't have really good well water, or you have a softener system, or even if you do some fermenting and you use, like what I have here, a hard water system, you might actually ruin your ferment or your pickling or your sauerkraut or whatever you're doing, because due to the excess salt that's in a water softening system. So a person might want to look at, and I don't like using our water, because some people say, well, just take the water out from the faucet outside. But because we have that rust, that iron in there, and that sulfur, it makes it don't turn out either. So in actuality, me having the RO system, yeah, since it doesn't pump out a lot of water to begin with, canning is sort of, as far as pickles and ferments and things like that, would be probably pretty limited, because I don't get enough pressure going through to get enough water flow through my tank and the faucet and the whole system. If I lived in town and didn't have a well but was on the city water, pressure being higher, then we'd get more water through this system. So there's pros and cons to it, and you really have to think out your situation and go from there how you want to do it. I know some people just go ahead and buy water in town. You can do that too. The question would be, do you trust that water? And if you do, great. If you don't, then you might want to consider, if you own your own house, getting this, whether you're on city water or you're on well and you don't have the best of well water due to various obvious things. You might want to go ahead and get a system like this. So I hope this helps everybody out. If the video went too long, I'm sorry. There's a lot to, kind of explain, help a person think through whether or not they'd want a system like this. Anyways, I will talk to you all later. Have a great day.